My name is Laura Rollins, and we divided ours into 3 sections. I did the Muslim hostages slain in Acre 1191. It is a Latin book that was written in 1191 by Richard de Templo, who may have or may not have participated in the Third Crusade himself. The Third Crusade happened from around 1189 to 1192. It was an attempt by the leaders of the 3 of the most powerful states of Western Christianity to reconquer the Holy Land, following the capture of Jerusalem. The first part of this book really focuses and concentrates on Saladin's conquest and the earlier stages of this crusade. That includes a long description of the expedition of Emperor Frederick Barcelona. The rest of this book describes how King Richard I of England participated in the crusade. King Richard participated in this, and a quote that I pulled from our source was, King Richard asked the French king for an agreement for the preservation of mutual faith and security. They, like their fathers, disliked keeping up a rivalry, and though they looked for mutual love, it was never considered significant to exclude fear. I felt this quote pulled well together with the source, because this quote is important to show King Richard's participation and his way of thinking. From taking past experiences and personal beliefs, there were decisions that was made, and leaders had to make those decisions.
Hi, so I picked my 2 questions for set number 6, the Third Crusade, the King's Crusade. I decided to look at the 2 questions of, number 1, how did Frederick Barbarossa die, and what scripture would accompany it? And what did King Richard do with the prisoners of war? And so, to answer the first question, Frederick Barbarossa, which he was the king of Germany at the time, he actually died while drowning in the Cadamus rivers. And as scripture says, thou shalt not swim against the river's current in Ecclesiastes 4:32, and which is kind of funny. Well, not funny that happened, but it's funny that we have a scripture that's written in this passage that speaks about not swimming against the river, and that was what he did to show that his army could. And then, for what did King Richard do with the Muslim prisoners? He had decided that Saladin had hardened his heart and cared no longer about ransoming the hostages, and he assembled a great council of men in which they decided that they couldn't wait any longer and that they needed to behead the captives, except for a few, which they decided to give to some of the noblemen in the chance that they might be ransomed or exchanged for other Christian captives. And the reason I chose these 2 is it gives a little bit more insight to how these 2 leaders kind of were. Where Frederick Barbarossa was more of a follow me by an example, and where King Richard was more of an idealist, and also was a great leader and was very wise. Thank you.
I'm Sarah Moore, and I'll be talking about the medieval source book, when Philip Augustus returns to France. Philip traveled to the Holy Land to participate in the Third Crusade with King Richard of England and the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick Barbarossa. At first, the French and the English Crusaders traveled together, but the armies split after Richard decided to go by sea from Marseille, whereas Philip took the overland route through the Alps. The French and English armies were reunited in Messina. Philip arrived at Acre, which was already under siege by a worse group of crusaders. By the time Acre was surrendered on July 12th, Philip I was severely ill. The siege of Acre resulted in the death of Philip I, Philip Augustus' father, who held the county of Venemus proper. His death threatened to derail the Treaty of Gisors. Philip decided to return to France to settle the issue of succession in Flanders. a decision that displeased Richard. Philip and his cousin Peter made their way to Genoa and from there returned to France. The decision to return was fueled by the realization that with Richard campaigning in the Holy Land, that it would be open to attack. After Richard's delay home, war began between England and France.